I think I'm going to call this the unbelievable video. There is so many things happening right now that really are just pretty insane. I mean, from the drops that we've seen today in Bitcoin to some of the rebounds that we've seen in the alt market to the fear and greed index. I mean, there's so many different things that are just completely wild that are going on right now. So I want to go over all this, talk with you about it, and then give you some information about all the different things that we're seeing within the crypto market as it kind of unfolds. Obviously, a lot of really wild stuff going on. So anyway, welcome back to the channel. As I said, we're going to be going through kind of some pretty interesting recent developments within the market. Starting out, we are going to take a look at the crypto bubble to kind of cover the first point that we have seen here, and that is that alts are actually doing pretty well. We can see Bitcoin is actually down, but alts are doing relatively strong. Obviously, we've got kind of reds here and there. Ethereum also down about 5%, Bitcoin down about 2.4%. These are the two largest coins by market cap, so the fact that they're down is obviously far more substantial than the fact that a lot of these other ones are up. But we can see a lot of alts actually doing really well here, so that is a little bit surprising, I would say. We can see Solana just sitting here at about break even. So, that's good overall. Pi been kind of the one with the most volatility, but they just had kind of their TGE and their airdrop. So I think that makes a lot of sense. We are seeing a little bit of some signs of life from virtuals as well, which is really good to see. This is one that I do have pretty high conviction in. And then one that I'm actually considering making a video about is potentially Litecoin. This one could be a little bit of a sleeper play. And so I'm watching this one pretty closely. I'm interested to see kind of what goes on here. But anyway, that's kind of what we're looking at within the market today. We can see the WEEX still definitely very much red here. Obviously not the best news, but that's what it's been, right? I mean, Bitcoin down 10% just this week, Solana 17, Ethereum 13, the big ones, XRP 17, the big ones really getting wrecked here. So, that's kind of the situation we're still in. As we can see in the past 24 hours, again, almost another $1 billion liquidated, 775 million, the majority of them being longs because we did break further down today, which I think a lot of people maybe weren't expecting. And then we can see another, 175 million of shorts getting wrecked. If we look, over the 24-hour time frame, we can see the majority going on longs. But if we look at some of these shorter time frames, it's the majority going shorts because we are seeing a little bit of a bounce in the market right now. And so that's kind of why we're seeing this kind of skew towards the short range. So let's go take a look at that. As we can see with Bitcoin, we can see obviously a little bit of that bounce rolling up here. This is just the hourly charts, so a little bit of the shorter time frame here. We'll go and we'll take a little bit closer look at that. But as we can see, we are actually back to neutral, which happened pretty quickly, I would say, given kind of what we've seen recently. But we were way oversold kind of when we were seeing this dip here. Hard to say for sure. I was talking about this on a live stream earlier today that we could potentially be seeing, maybe a little bit of a bounce back up here, maybe some consolidation within this range, and then maybe a further break to the downside where we could ultimately be settling on this kind of 74,000 range. It's hard to say for sure, really hard to say. If we do look at the daily, we can see, we did have kind of this wick close out here, and then now we're right back up above this support. So maybe we see this support kind of be what holds us for a little bit. I would imagine we probably start to see price level out just because we have seen such a sustained move to the downside. This is now 3 full days of closed wicks where we have seen price really just kind of fall off a bridge. And so hopefully, we start to see a little bit of stabilization. There is the possibility that we kind of jump right back up. I think that possibility is very low. Just in my opinion, usually we don't see stuff like that happening. But as we can see on the daily, RSI actually moving back out of oversold. So we did kind of hit this, what was this at? About 24 on the RSI. Very oversold. So I think some surprising price movements happening here and catching a lot of people by surprise. And this is kind of evidenced by just the ridiculous amounts of liquidations that we've seen. I mean, a really crazy amount of liquidations happening probably over, I would say, the past 3 to 4 weeks. If we look at the Bitcoin chart, kind of everything from I would say here onward, we've just seen some pretty stupid amounts of liquidations going on. So that is a little bit crazy. As you can see, we still do have our trades open. None of these have been liquidated. Virtuals is actually back to positive again. It's moving fairly nicely. So that's pretty good. One of the things that I mentioned on a video a couple days ago is I forgot to kind of manage this position and set a stop loss at break even. So this did go back negative. I'm probably going to do that now just because I should be doing that. I just wasn't because it's a demo account. So I usually don't pay too much attention to it, but I do think that I should practice good management, because I know that some of you are going to be looking at this maybe a little bit more closely than you should, because this is not financial advice. But that's a whole different question for a different time. But if you are interested in trading Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, any of that type of stuff, I do have that link in the description below, both to BTCC, where they do have that 10% bonus on first time deposits. So it's a really, really great offer. In addition, they do $10,055 per user, as well as no VPN or KYC necessary. I also just released a video about Phemex. I trade on here as well. Got that link in the description below. About $4,800 in sign up bonuses, if I remember correctly. And then also I do use WEEX as well. Also link in the description below. And this is about, I think, up to 30,000 in sign up bonuses. Definitely a lot of money, but there's a lot of different things you have to do to get it. But really, really, really good offer. Now, moving on, I want to take a look at kind of the next thing that I think is super crazy with what we see going on in this market right now, is we can see that the Bitcoin fear and greed is currently lower than it was during the FTX collapse. That's pretty crazy, right? I mean, we can see the FTX collapse here. Obviously, we see this major wick, and we can see it down at 21%. We can see here, Crypto Rover is allocating this to Trump tariffs. I think that's wrong. We'll talk a little bit about why I think that's wrong and what it's really about. And we can see in extreme fear. Pretty impressive. And I think this kind of speaks to the larger idea of kind of markets and how they work. The reason why, in my opinion, the fear and greed is lower right now than it was during the FTX collapse is because while the FTX collapse was a surprise, it's all about expectations, right? When you had the expectations, I mean, let's go back and take a quick look at the chart. You could see it was pretty clear that the bull market was already over. There was already mass capitulation. All the major liquidations and stuff kind of were happening back at this point. Here is just kind of like, this was just kind of like the final hammer blow. Everybody kind of knew things were coming. I mean, I think Terra Luna had already collapsed at this point. People had already gotten wrecked with Anchor and Celsius and BlockFi and a lot of these. So, the fact that when we saw FTX collapse, I think it's just the expectations in the market were already so low. It was kind of like, meh, it's just another one at this point, right? And so I think that's why we're seeing a difference here, where at this point you can see we've just had several years at this point of basically up only, or very, very consistent uptrends going on basically since FTX. And now we're at a point where we kind of were at the top. People were expecting some really, really great things out of Bitcoin. We're seeing a potential, or we were eyeing a potential move up to, 120, 150, 180, 200 even maybe. And we're seeing something moving in a complete opposite direction. A lot of people were kind of, if we go back to the chart here, a lot of people were kind of looking at this being kind of the, this kind of being the major bull market support level. And it's very obvious that we've clearly broken through that. And so I think there was a lot of fear that moved into the market when we broke through this level here, because we're like, oh, well, that's it. The bull market's over. And so, there were a lot of people who are maybe allocated more into alts than they wanted to be. And, there's, I think, a level of manipulation in the market. Obviously, there were a ton of liquidations in this level, which of course is going to push the market lower because you do have forced sellers at that point. So a lot of this type of stuff, I think, is kind of why we're seeing the fear and greed index being so much lower than at a point like during FTX, is because of its expectations. Expectations are everything in this market, and you have to make sure to keep yours in check, because that is really what's super important here. Now, back to this Trump tariffs comment, I don't really think that's the case. I think the main reason why Bitcoin is kind of pulling back so hard is because if you look at the traditional markets, we're seeing something very similar. The S&P has had a little bit of a beating, not too bad if we're comparing it to crypto. The Dow has had multiple days of kind of consecutive declines. We're also seeing interest rate declines within the treasury markets and the bond markets. Usually not a particularly good sign. We're seeing the possibility of a potential debt crisis continue to raise as we kind of continue to add onto our debt and a lot of that type of stuff in the US speaking. Obviously, China has started printing money into oblivion over back in January, and it's probably expected to continue. Usually that's not a 1 month isolated thing. And so there's a lot of this type of stuff going on that speaks to potentially a much larger and more serious global financial crisis, correction, thing, whatever you want to call it, than maybe what a lot of people had kind of expected or priced in. So I don't really think this is tariffs. Tariffs, I think, are a piece to this, but they're not actually the main driver, in my opinion. Now, you obviously can agree, you can disagree. You have to make your own decision there, but I think there's a lot more baked into this than just tariffs, because if that was truly the case, I mean, tariffs were announced like back in this area too. We didn't really see anything happen there. So now I want to share this next post that we're seeing on X, and this is, I think, a really great way to keep perspective here. And this perspective is, what we can see is a 30% correction in a Bitcoin bull cycle is common, as it dropped 53% in 2021 and still recovered to an all-time high, according to CryptoQuant CEO Ki-Young Ju. Buying when prices rise and selling when they fall is the worst investment strategy. Invest with a clear plan, he added. I mean, I think this is pretty obvious. Not much more to add here. But if we do look at this price chart, we can see exactly that. I mean, if we look here, the gold is the 2017 cycle. We can see that we saw a drawdown right after, fairly close after we saw that top. We go down and we hit, what is this, like a 35% drawback, and then we come back up to all-time highs. Cool, right? But then we also could see here in 2021, or 2020 cycle, I guess, the gray one, we could see here comes down. This is the 51% that Ki-Young Ju was referencing. And now we can look here at the 2024 cycle. I mean, we haven't even hit even close, for that matter, either of these levels that we have seen in the past. So this is kind of what is so surprising to me, and kind of what defies all sorts of logic that I'm trying to kind of rationalize here. Is like, why are we at a 10 on the Crypto Fear and Greed Index when we're sitting at 83,000 or 86,000 at this point currently, and we're looking at something that, like, we're not even half of what we've seen in previous cycles. So this is just what's so crazy to me. I don't really understand why people are so bearish. Like, even if we fall back down to like 74K for Bitcoin, like, yeah, it's not ideal, but it's still like, it's not at all like even close to like what we've seen in the past. And also, this is like the most bullish news we've seen in the past. In the past, right? Like, this is the most bullish news that we've ever seen, from institutional adoption, from government adoption, from regulation potentially coming in that hopefully takes a lot of the bad actors out of the space. There's so many things going on that I find highly, highly bullish. So I'm running by this kind of same exact kind of mentalities, because if you look, when we go here and we'll take a look at the charts that I've got loaded up on Phemex here, you can see I actually have a whole bunch of orders set at levels that are substantially below where we are. You can see my Bitcoin position. I have an order sitting down here at 74K. If we look at something like Ethereum, I'm expecting, or I guess I shouldn't say expecting, but I'm getting to the point where it's like, I'm open to this possibility. We see this here at a key level of support. I think this is like 2100-ish. Yeah, 2170 is where I've got there. We look at something like Solana. We see a key level of support down here at like the 125 range. Gotta buy in on here. Like, all of these different things, like, I'm open to the possibility that we could see something like that. And so that's why I have some of these limit orders purchased. Obviously, this is not financial advice. You need to make your own decision. We could see Bitcoin go down to 50K. I have no idea. Nobody has any idea. There's been somebody in my comment section calling for Bitcoin at 25K, right? I don't necessarily agree with that, but who am I to say that they're wrong, right? I mean, they could completely be right. And that's just kind of what happens in the market. You have to kind of make your bets and kind of make your own decisions accordingly, because that's ultimately what the market's all about, and all that type of fun stuff. So anyway, hopefully you found the information in this video useful. If you did, please do give me a like and a subscribe. It really, really does help me out, especially getting pushed further on into the YouTube algorithm, all of that type of stuff. Also, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, thoughts like that, just drop those in the comment section below. I do really enjoy getting to hear all of those from you guys. So if you have anything you want me to see, that'd be a really great way to do it. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.